Hey Wayne, welcome to the Hidden Wire podcast. Great to have you here today. Thanks so much for coming on
It's a pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me.
over in New Zealand.
Yep. Not far away. We're like little brother to big brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think. I know I've had New Zealanders on the podcast in the past, but I reckon the last one was closer to when I started the podcast. So it's refreshing to have you here today.
Thank you, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
Wayne, you've got a remarkable story. You work on consulting now, speaking, and coaching. You've also authored a book, The Warrior Within. Is that right? Oh, The Inner Warrior, sorry.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
you've recently published and doing quite well. So obviously want to share that story with the audience and hopefully encourage them to pick up a copy of your book. But before all this, you were in rugby, right?
yeah. Rugby and farming. Typical country boy from the outblocks of the east coast of Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, wow. So rugby, tell us your story. How long were you doing rugby before the accident?
I started playing rugby when I was about 5 years old.
Hmm.
I grew up with farming parents and grandfather, and spent a lot of the time on front of his horse growing up. So farming was really my passion growing up. And when I had to go to school, I didn't really like it. Didn't really want to be there. But school had sport, and one of those games was rugby. So I played it right through the grades. Did quite well as a junior young man. And this day that I was playing for my local club, uh, it was just not like no other, really. And right in the last minutes of the game, I took the ball up, had contact with a couple of the opposition, and bang, next minute, I just collapsed. Everything collapsed on me, and uh, the weakest point was my neck, and I ended up with my head under my shoulder, pretty much
Wow.
dislocated my neck, and yeah, pain was like a hot poker, burning in the back of my neck. I don't know if you've ever dislocated something, but it's not a nice feeling. It was about an hour and a half before the helicopter come because we're quite rural, and the doctor came with the helicopter and finally gave me some pain relief. And uh, the next 5 days were pretty blurry, and I woke up looking at the ceiling in hospital, going, "God, please let it be a bad dream."
Okay.
And it wasn't. Then a doctor came in and said that I wouldn't walk again, and that sort of like it just felt like someone had kicked me in the guts. Even though I was kind of feeling that this is serious, it was still a brutal moment in my life, and
Hmm.
I'd been running a couple of businesses. I was running a farm and shearing sheep as a sideline, which is like 3 marathons in one day. It's a real physical job.
Yeah.
Ran everywhere, super fit. And all of a sudden, I was facing this life in a wheelchair, not being able to move my hands, arms, legs. Not those early days, I couldn't even feed myself. Um, Weak as a kitten. And it was like, how am I gonna survive this?
Hmm. And you
Mm.
have.
Yeah, bloody well, actually. I've made a incredible life. It's been 30 years ago now, or nearly 30 years in May.
Yeah, wow.
Um, and yeah, I've done so much, and it's all because I've been working the process that I now teach and is in the book.
Yeah, okay. What a remarkable story. So 30 years ago you had the accident.
Yeah, 1995. I was 25 years old. Twin daughters of 16 months. I was married. It was quite amazing, Leigh. I packed so much into the 25 years before.
Yeah.
It was like I kind of must have, on a soul level, known that I was
Something was
going
going
to
to
take
happen.
this path.
Hmm. How much more have you packed in since, but
Ah, incredible. We could be all day talking about it. I've done extreme outdoor activities, and I'm a big chicken, really, but I've done paragliding, abseiling, whitewater rafting, you name it. I've done most of it. Um, and traveled. I've spoken on stages all around the world. I've authored the book. I've done a 10X talk. There's just, I've had two more kids. So I've now four kids. I'm a grandfather as well. There's just so much that I've packed into the next 30 as well. So I feel really blessed, actually, Lee.
Absolutely, man. And what an inspiration you are to others too, because, and then we'll talk about it, but often people go through adversity, but not that significant, right? So put us back on that day you woke up in bed and the doctor, must be a hard bloody job to do, but delivering that message to you, what went through your mind? What didn't go through your mind?
Am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, it was like, oh, fuck off. That's I just, it hit me on that level that I just wanted him to fuck off. It was, he didn't have great English and he was very blunt. And, of course, that was just where I was in that moment. I was just feeling that hurt and that pain of what had happened to me.
Yeah,
Um, it was a pretty dark moment.
yeah,
But I also had this voice, Lee, that quietly just said, because I said to myself, how am I going to survive this? Because it was such an extreme. Here I was, this country boy, and always doing stuff with my hands. I never did that well at school because I found out later I was dyslexic and also all I could see my future being was farming. So it was it was a real dark moment. And then I had these two little beautiful daughters, and it was like, I have to keep going. And that voice, there was this quiet, calm voice in me that just said, do what you love. And I was blessed enough to be leasing the farm off my parents. So I went back to the farm. And I think that helped pull me into life because I had
yeah,
a vision of. And in those early days, Lee, I honestly couldn't see how I was going to achieve farming again from a wheelchair. It's a
mm,
physical choice, and I couldn't even drive at this stage. It took me a couple of years to drive, but I think it helped me drive and helped me get stronger and transfer because I had something pulling me, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Uh, as well as the kids, of course.
yeah. What, I mean, you're obviously a very motivated individual, I would assume, based on your 25 years and then the incident and then recovery. What tools did you use, or what was it that, obviously your kids and your family, but what else was it that helped you take that courage to work through it? Because you're paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, yeah, I've got shoulder
Yeah.
movement and a bit of arm movement. Um, there's every vertebrae has you've got seven vertebrae in your neck, or six, seven vertebrae, and I'm about four or five vertebrae down. So your level drops with every vertebrae that you have an injury at.
Yeah.
And we're all very complex. But to answer your question, um, I, I I ended up going into self-development because once I achieved my first vision of doing the farm again, and I actually ran that with the help of my now wife,
Yeah.
um, and that gave me the ability, or made me question, like, wow, I couldn't see how I was going to do that. So what am I going to do next, right? And I wanted something more, and so I asked for more and I went on this journey of creating more. Just for the backstory of to answer your question, and what I worked out when I got into self-development was there was a process. And that process is create a vision of what you want with love for yourself in the future. And we have to grow into that, right? And then it was creating a decision for that going back to the farm. If I was wishy-washy, there would have been an opportunity for me to pull back, or when it got hard, or when I had to go out and do the weights every cold morning, or get out of bed when I didn't want to, it would have been easy to give up. And I think decision is such a powerful thing. I
Yeah.
made a decision for the going back and giving it my all to get back to doing what I loved.
Yeah.
And so,
So doing the
yeah,
farm work. So did you make that decision yourself, or did you have support that helped you make that decision? Like, why didn't you
uh,
just give up and go, well, shit, I'm paralyzed. This is my life now.
yeah, it's a good question. I think my parents always taught us to look forward. They're always creating. We're creative. We're creating. We are creative beings in
Yeah.
life, right? And we all are. And my parents always taught us to move forward um, in a way that they did, and always didn't matter what challenge you had. And my parents have had some challenges over their years, and they always move forward.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the secret. I love the teaching of the hero story of there's always a dark night, and that dark night is so that the hero can be born. And
Right.
I think we've all got a hero in us. It's learning to realize that we all got shit too.
Mm.
And, you know, a friend of mine said, it doesn't matter how big your shit is. It doesn't matter if it's small or big, it still stinks. So, I love that. It's a great reminder that yes, I ended up getting paralyzed, but shit is shit. Doesn't matter how big it is. It's there for us to grow, I believe. Um, and if we're clever enough, we don't need the shit to grow, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So you had a decision to do something about your current situation. And that decision was based on a vision that I love farm work. Why not get
I
back
love
into that
farming, mate.
farming?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this is the advice you'd give people you coach and work with if
Yeah.
they're going through adversity. But how does that look? I mean, if you were to give me advice in a adverse situation,
Well,
how would you
first
work with someone to create that vision or understand that there is hope?
First of all, those are the first two things. It's finding something that you love, right? And choose anything. Doesn't matter if it's just the perfect relationship, or with your wife or partner, or with your kids, or if it's your health. Just pick something that uh, is going to pull you forward, and create the vision of that thing.
Yeah,
That's the first. That's first, and then decide for it, obviously. But it's easier to decide for it when it's coming from the heart, and you would absolutely love it,
yeah,
right? And then the other part of this that I teach my clients and is in the book is that we have to understand that there's two sides to our nature. There's the human experience, and that is from our born date to the day we die. We're born to die. We've got this line of life that we get to experience here as humans.
yeah,
Now, there's a lot of patterning. There's beliefs that are created by the experiences that we've had growing up, who we're born to, schooling, you name it. There's a whole lot of different things that happen in that lifetime that we perceive, rightly or wrongly, doesn't really matter, but we perceive them, and some of them are great and some of them aren't so great. And those things that aren't great are quite often traumas that were pushed down, especially when we were little. And understanding that that trauma is also holding you back from creating what you love in your
Mm,
life today.
mm, mm,
And so with my clients and what I tried to do with the book through only 10,000 words, because I wanted men to read it, was to get them to understand that you've got this human experience, but there's another side of the nature of you, and that's the spiritual side. You're connected to nature, universe. You can call it God, and that's what I call the inner warrior in us, right? And that side of the nature doesn't see the lack, limitation, scarcity, or the conditions. It only sees that it is unconditional love, abundance, just like nature. If we leave it alone, nature is abundant, right? And it's genius. We're born into this world. If you look at a little baby and look into their eyes and how they achieve so much in that first 7 years, they grow so much and grow quickly and learn so much. We still have that mind, but we've been conditioned by these patterns to um, to stop believing in that genius mind.
mm.
So we've got this side of the nature that is whole, genius, unconditional love, abundant.
London. Yeah.
Yet this side is also your instincts. This is your gut feel. This is the part of you that says, take the umbrella today, even though it's nice and sun shining, and you leave and you dismiss it, and you get to lunchtime and it pours down, and you think, damn, I knew that I needed to bring an umbrella, right? I think everyone can relate to that.
Mm,
And so this side of it, of our nature, knows the solutions to our problems and knows the answers to our questions. I think it's Tony Robbins that says, who's a great teacher and this stuff, says that, if you can't find the solution, you're not asking the right question.
yeah.
And and so this is the inner warrior. So what I get my clients to do is then learn to distinguish the two and create a relationship with this part of yourself that knows all the answers. That
Mm,
it is abundant. It is worthy. It is because it's whole. It's not broken in any way.
mm.
You and I aren't broken. I'm not broken because I've had an accident, you know. Um, so
It's very
that's
spiritual, isn't it? And I love it. It's right up my alley. But this idea that nature exists in us and we're all connected in a way. And
yeah,
going back into that intuition that we have naturally connected to the rest of the universe is something that we certainly disconnect from in life in a big way. So with that being said, how do you reconnect with that? Because we've got all this trauma, all this past. I'm 43 now. There's probably people older than me listening to this podcast. Many, many years of, what do you call it? Conditioning. How do we reconnect?
yeah, a beautiful question again. And there's a number of things that we can do. First thing is question everything.
Hmm.
You know, find your own belief outside your beliefs that you have now. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think questioning is so powerful, and that's one of the big points of the book is don't even take my belief in this. Question it. Question: is there something that's breathing us? Is your intuition always right? You know, um, is it? Is it that gut feel? How can I create a better relationship with that side of myself? Um, that's the first, I think, Leigh, is being curious and questioning everything.
Yeah.
And that will take you on your own road
Yeah.
to discovering who you really are. Um, and that means you have to question even the beliefs that you have, that whatever that is, through growing up and what your parents taught you. And, we've all heard money beliefs, and that's probably a common one. Uh, Money is the root of all evil. Yes, the love of money is the root of all evil, but money itself isn't evil.
How can it be?
It's, yeah, or money doesn't grow on trees. Well, we know today it's printed from trees, and there's plenty of it.
Yeah.
It's just not in the people's pockets. So it's just understanding that if I question everything, I will find the answers I need to find.
But questioning is everything. And I assume you have your ways to do this, but I think, and again, this is the difference between going internally and living a life externally. And I think we do live extrinsically too much. And rather than questioning the inner, we seek external answers and questions, you know?
Yeah.
And the world is so socially connected now and so busy and so overwhelming that we don't allow space or time to have that level of questioning. And the other thing I think that comes up for me when I think about it is it can be, well, it's very courageous to ask those internal questions. And I think a lot of men, particularly, potentially women as well, avoid it because they don't want to know the answers that it might bring. But yet,
Mm,
if we could go through that gate and start asking those deep questions and really start to feel, when we start to connect with that inner being, like you said, we'll have an abundance and much more peace and happiness and tranquility and joy in this experience.
mm. Yeah, I love that. And that's the modern masculine man. Vulnerability is power, is strength.
Yeah,
It's being able to acknowledge the pain,
yeah,
especially as men in the modern world, instead of pushing it down. I don't know about you, Leigh, but you know, I've had a lot of pain in this experience, and that same pain um, caused my accident. The internal voice was at that moment, I'm not good enough. These
right.
two people aren't going to take the ball off me. I have to show that I'm better than anyone else. And to do that, I then put myself in danger on purpose.
Yeah,
No,
wow.
it was a choice
Mm.
from that mindset, right?
Yeah,
And everyone's got that dark, sad place in them that I'm not a good enough in some way, right? As a man, especially. And
mm.
what have we been taught to do? Push it down,
Yeah,
push it down, keep it down until all of a sudden we have a burst of anger or we have, that's our release valve. If you ever want to know why you're angry, it's because of the past traumas and you've pushed that hurt down and we don't want to open the can. So we get to the point where we burst out in anger or we burst out in sadness or anxiety or frustration. Mine was anger as a little boy, and then it turned into anxiety after my accident. Um, and so it's the only way I would have come by this was that I got curious. And so, yeah, I think vulnerability is where it's at for the modern masculine man.
well, obviously took some courageous internal questioning for you about that, right? And
Yeah.
and again, because you feel so vulnerable, you sort of then go, oh shit, I'm gonna avoid this because I don't want to expose my true self.
Mm, mm.
I struggle with it today, being totally vulnerable. I try, and I'm aware, but it's bloody difficult sometimes, right?
Ah, totally, man. And no, I come from that real masculine man background,
Mm,
farming, sharing, drinking, party hard, work hard, right? And to get to this point, it's been a journey. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't been overnight.
Yeah.
I'm 30 years down the track from my major accident that changed my life, and I had to
Mm.
reinvent myself. Uh, and I think, and the more you do it, the more, and you realize what the impact is on others around you. Um, you, it gets easier to be vulnerable and say, "This is how I feel."
Yeah.
Um, and once we do that, too, Leigh, we have a choice then, because once we acknowledge it, we then can say, "Right, I'm going to stay where I am, or I'm going to work to become a better version of myself."
Mm. Takes a great deal of ownership and responsibility for you to open up like that, right? For you to actually, well, you sort of talked about your accident and pretty much how it was your fault. You put yourself in that position.
I never, in the early days, I wanted to look for blame. I wanted to blame others. I blamed the guy that came offside and whacked me in up the backside, just at the point of where it was no return. There was moments, but as I've grown spiritually and grown my awareness by that curiosity and asking questions, I realized that no, it was me. It was my voice in my head, my darkness that put me in that opportunity. Some
Hmm.
would say my ego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, because I'm sure a lot of people listening could relate. If you're working with someone, I'm just trying to put this in a eloquent sort of way, but how do you open that up within someone? The ability to be vulnerable, to accept their situation as to accept their situation as ownership of their situation.
Well, first one is trust,
Mm.
listening, listening, trust, and then getting them to by asking questions. I think that's someone asked me the other day, how do you communicate? And I said, listening. Listen,
Mm.
we're as a society, we don't authentically listen enough. We want to finish someone's conversation, or we want to fix, especially those around us that we love. We want to fix their problems, especially as men. Um, and we don't really listen until they've really finished.
Mm.
And then if you can ask a question instead of trying to solve it, that's, as a coach, we call it evocative coaching, right? Because you've got all the answers. You are the highest authority of your life in this experience, not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Not me, or not the prime minister, or whoever's in charge. We are just as powerful, and we have this internal power that knows what is right for us, right? So
Yeah.
it's questions, it's listening
Listening.
and asking questions, and being on point with helping that person find their own awareness
Yeah.
of the power they possess.
Mm.
They're inner warrior or inner goddess for the woman, and once we do that, then all of a sudden that curiosity and that love, unconditional love, is the other part. I'll
Mm.
just give you a quick story, Leigh, and that was I had a client who was in the gangs, and he doesn't mind me saying that. He's given me testimonials and all sorts. He was angry and frustrated and um, full of resentment. And he was from a solar mum background, didn't really have a good dad figure in his life. And he worked with me for over a year. At the beginning, I didn't know he was in the gangs. And he said to me one day, he said, "Wayne, you've taught me a different kind of love." And that was just unconditional, love. I held the space for him. I didn't judge him. I don't judge anybody because it's their experience they're going through. And I understand now that we're all linked, like you said, and he's got his road to live that is um, for all of us in some way, right?
Mm.
And now he's doing coaching himself. He's coaching in the gym. He's a gym buff. He's lost probably about 40 kilos. He's fit, healthy, his mind, he's reading, he's curious, he's learning, and he's now impacting others.
Yeah.
And it's all because of that process of asking questions, unconditional love for who he is as a spirit,
Mm.
and making him find his power,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not, taking him on the road to his own power.
It's interesting, this whole idea of abundance too. Um, we seem to be in this chase for more and more in life. And often I reflect on my life, well, obviously, and at times where I'm just like in that hamster wheel, as you might call it, things don't seem to go. You push and push and push, but once you let go, then suddenly things open up. All right.
Yeah,
I don't know how
perfect.
you explain that, but
Well, the way I would explain it, Lee, is that when we get involved in how we're going to do it, right? And that's the push energy. And I use the analogy of a river, right? You have to have a destination. So that's why the vision is so important,
mm,
right? And then we get into the current of the river. But the problem is our human experience puts all these rocks and eddies, whirlpools and waterfalls in our path. And what we do is try to turn around and go against the current, or we try to go faster than the current will take us, and we aren't watching out for the opportunities around us. Because the inner warrior, if we just trust in that power,
mm,
having a vision, knowing it's coming from the heart, and just let the opportunity of the next step to um, visualize, to open up for us, right? Instead of trying to figure out how to get there, we all of a sudden start taking the steps that is in alignment with the dream and our purpose and our river, that flow to the sea, right?
mm,
And if we just go with the current, we're sweet. But if we go too fast, we miss it. We miss the opportunities that we should have taken. We end up going over that waterfall instead of going the other way
yeah,
if the river is forked.
yeah,
And I love that analogy is that
me
all we have
too.
to do is have something in our hearts that we would love to create and stop worrying about the how. Just let the step in front of you come and take that step. And when you've done that, take action on the next step. And
Mm,
before you know it, you've climbed up Mount Everest and you look back and you go, oh, how did I do that?
yeah.
Just like the farming.
Well, you've certainly done it in your life, mate, with the yeah, what you've overcome and what you've achieved since your accident too. I think I mean that idea of just letting go and going with the steps, it almost becomes, I don't know, for me, sometimes it feels like you're just being a bit complacent, you know?
Well, it's
Like just
scary.
just I'll let go and do nothing and hope for the best. Oh, I've just had a power out. Are you there? Hello, Wayne? Hey, I got you
Hey,
back. Mate, just had a power out here.
I wondered what had happened.
It's like, what's going on? And
I was
yeah, sure
thinking,
enough,
oh, I hope it's
around
not.
me, I'm just like, okay.
I
Not your
was
end.
like, I hope it's not my internet.
I just hope that hasn't affected our recording today. But look, we'll leave it there anyway, Wayne. I know you've got a couple of things you want to share with people that are listening. And first, I'll ask you now, how can people best connect with you?
Yeah, mate, I've got a website, wayneforrest.com.
Yep.
It's one word. Forrest has got two R's. Um, and yeah, I'm on the socials as well, which are linked to my website, so that's the easiest way to find me.
Yep.
Um, Yeah, and I'd love to offer complimentary session to 10 of your first 10 in of your viewers. A complimentary session is a gift of my time. It's a 45-minute call where we just look at getting clear on what are those struggles, those challenges in the person's life, and we help them look at what might be blocking them from creating their life that they would love. And then we
Mm,
look at what it is they would love. What is that thing that they would love to create? Um, and also, we call this the vision. And then just helping them take a step in the direction because there's always a gap between what we would love and where we are. So I will help them come to a decision on a step they can take in the direction of that outcome. And
beautiful.
so that's like I said, that's got a cost to it. It's normally 250 US dollars, but that's absolutely complimentary to your listeners, Leigh. For the first 10 that jump on the website, we'll put a link um, in the show notes.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Wayne. What a remarkable gift. Thank you. Very generous. Guys, make sure you check that out. If you're interested, jump on there quick. It'll be in the show notes. Um, so yeah, if you're listening to this when it's released, then jump in there, check the show notes, and use that link to connect with Wayne and schedule your complimentary session. That's awesome.
Yeah, and if they want the book, Leigh, it's on Amazon.
Yep.
Just the Inner Warrior, The Power Within, and it's got a companion book in there as well, with a few exercises just to help them get started on that journey that we've been talking about.
Yeah, cool. I'll stick the links in the show notes, guys, for the book. Wayne, such a pleasure, mate. Thanks you for opening up and sharing your story. Remarkable story and very inspirational. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks, mate, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Guys, check it out, thehiddenwhy.com. Live more fully, have more meaning, find more joy. We'll speak soon.